Hi, my name is Shelby. Welcome friends and subscribers. Today I'm going to letter the word October and I'm going to use two techniques. The first one is writing with gouache on black paper and keeping the colors fairly pure on each letter rather than so blended. And the second technique is I'll be using a powdered gold and I'll be dipping my pen into that powdered gold and giving it an extra sheen to the word. I'm going to be using gouache today, which has a lot of the properties of watercolor, except for that it's opaque rather than transparent, and it will show up well on my black paper. I'm not going to use the tube variety today. Instead, I'm using the pan ones that I have, and they are a Pelikan brand. I have already diluted them down to the consistency with distilled water of about a very maybe whole milk, kind of maybe even a little bit thicker than that. And I'll be loading that onto my brushes, then onto the pen. The other material that I'll be using is this Schmincke gold, powdered gold, and it's also available at any art supply store through the mail, or perhaps at your larger supply store. I keep a mesh cover on mine because sometimes I sprinkle it on my paper. In this case, I've loaded some from the jar into a small dish and I will be dipping my pen into that. I'll be using today a Speedball C-0, so I already have my paper lined up, which is an Arches cover paper, and I have it lined up at 1 inch for the lowercase letters. I've loaded some yellow into the reservoir of the nib, and I'm going to load in just a little bit of orange as well on both sides. I'm avoiding getting lots of pigment coming up here and here, because if I do, I won't be able to start on a hairline. I'm going to just start this a little bit, and you can see how too much color will come out and I won't be able to start on the hairline. So on the first stroke, I'm going to make sure it's a clean stroke. Here I am going to dip into the gold powder and start with the capital O. You may not be able to see my guidelines, but I'm starting above the 1 inch guidelines that I've drawn. And part of the capital O, I'm going to dip in again to the powdered gold and cut into the opening of the bowl of the O and come up around and touch that other stroke, even it out a little bit. I don't want to over touch it up, and then come back in and finish it up with a little bit of a pull right into the center of the O. Cleaning up my pen, and I'm loading it now with some yellow back into the reservoir. There's quite a bit of yellow pigment in there, and again, kind of making it very similar to the last time, but I'm sure it will come out different. touching it up. See, there's a lot of color there, which will make it not have a clean start. So I'm wiping it down a bit before I dip it into the powdered gold, and coming back now and making the letter C. Starting at a 45-degree angle because I'm working with the Italic alphabet. And you can see the orange really coming out in the letter C. Coming off with the finish. Cleaning it up again, and this time I'm even going to dip it into the water and dry off the nib really well because I don't want the color to become diluted. This time starting with the orange. And with the yellow afterwards. Both sides. Dipping into the gold powder and thinking about where I want that T to start. I'm going to go just a little bit, or maybe the height of the O, which is taller than you would with the traditional T, but we're not making a traditional T. I'm pulling down and I'm going to curve off to the left. And I'm not going to cross the T right now. I'm going straight into making the O. And because I didn't dip into the gold, powdered gold, I'm going to do that now. Because I do want some gold on each letter. And in fact, I'm going to just float a little bit of gold down here at the bottom of this O, work it in just a tiny bit. Cleaning off the nib yet again, making sure I don't pull it out or make my nib unstable in the pen holder. Coming in with yellow. Not working directly over my good paper, otherwise I could get some color on there, which would be an unhappy moment. Got a lot of pigment in the reservoir, touching in with some orange. Going to clean that up just a little bit, dip into the gold again, and concentrating because it's easy to forget what letter you're working on while you're talking and also while you're working slow. I'm starting, the B is an ascender letter, so it's going to be fairly tall, and that's why I'm starting even higher than the T, and I'm making sure that my color is going to flow for a long way. Okay, I'm going to chisel that off a little bit. And I don't think I've got quite enough for the bowl of the bee, so I'm coming back in with some orange into the reservoir. Mixing up the orange pigment because it is heavy and it goes to the bottom of the color well, and then I just have water if I'm only skimming off the top. Getting the powdered gold on, starting at the branching point in the bee. See that nice orange come out. Now, I've got enough color for what I want to do in my reservoir, and what I'm going to do is come up here and make a bit of a flourish, a bowl on the B, and I'm going to come down low enough so that when I do make the tea, I don't interfere with that. So, thinking ahead. Dipping into the powdered gold. .45-degree angle for that E. Let's make sure it's going to start for me. There we go. Now it's flowing. I'm going to make almost it's a lowercase sort of, almost a capital R for the final letter. And so it's going to require a little bit more ink on my pen, or a little bit more color on my pen, and to get through the 2 strokes I want. The stem of the R and the bowl of the R. I'm going to turn my paper because I'm using a different angle, and I might as well just help myself by moving the paper. Come out here. The R. Right. I'm thinking ahead to where I want that crossbar to be. It's going to be higher than a traditional crossbar on an italic T, and I want to start way over the C and practically go to that R, and I'm flattening my pen angle so I don't get a real thick crossbar. That got a little close to the B, but not too bad. So pull down the first part of the crossbar, and there you have the word October with gouache and powdered gold.